Hello and welcome to an introduction to programming using Visual Basic exercises for beginners. This exercise is called Airplane Seating Chart. An airplane has 15 rows numbered 1 through 15 with 6 seats labeled A through F in each row. Write a program that keeps track of the seats that have been reserved and the type of meal requested by each passenger. The seating chart should be displayed in a list box with a line for each row. When the ticket agent clicks on the desired row in a list box, the row number and the status of the seats in the row should be displayed in 7 read-only text boxes at the bottom of the form. When an agent clicks on one of the text boxes, a second form containing 4 options labeled unoccupied, regular, low-calorie, and vegetarian should appear. Clicking on the radio button should close the second form and update both text box and the row for that seat in the list box. Unoccupied seats are denoted with a period and occupied seats are denoted with the first letter of the meal type. At any time, the agent should be able to request the number of seats filled, the number of window seats vacant, and the number of each type of meals ordered. So here are our 2 forms. The first form has the seating chart and the second form is the meal selection, and basically what happens is we will click the row in a list box, the row will appear in this text box here, and then we will click any of the A, B, C, D, E, F text boxes to assign the meal. When we click any of these text boxes, the second form opens and we will select the meal. Once we click the meal, we are returned back to our seating chart, and that seat that we just selected will have the the letter of the meal that was selected, or a period if it's blank. So let me just show you that in action. I'll click any of the rows. You can see that I click number 6, and then I'm going to click the seat, let's say B, and a second form opens and I'll choose, let's say, low calorie. So now I have L on that seat, means it's occupied and the passenger requested low calorie meal. If I click another row, let's say E seat, I'll choose vegetarian, that's V. And this is how we're gonna be doing it. And when I click display statistics, I get the seats filled, currently 2, windows available 30, because that's 30 rows and I didn't choose any of the window seats yet. And we have 1 low calorie meal and 1 vegetarian meal. Alright, so I'm in Visual Studio 2015. Let's start coding. And I have both of the forms ready. Here's my seating chart form and here's my meals form. First, let's do the seating chart. I'll double click the form, and in my form level or class level, I'm going to create a variable which is going to be the seating chart itself, which is going to be a 2-dimensional array with 15 rows and 6 columns, because there's 6 seats in each row. And each of these rows can have a value of R for regular, L for low calorie, and V for vegetarian, or period for empty or unassigned seat. So I'm going to create another variable, and this one is not going to be a typical variable that we've seen so far, but this one's going to be a form, because we are going to need the meals form available to us. So I'll just call it FRM assign, and it's going to be a new form of the FRM meals form that I just showed you before. So this is the form that will be used to assign the seat. That when we click the text box for the seat, this form appears and we will select the meal that will be assigned to the particular seat. Now in our load event for the form, we are going to initialize and display the data array first and add headings to our list boxes. So the first one, I'll just going to add the ABC and DEF, which are the seat numbers. And I'll just space them out a little, ABC, and then there's the aisle in the airplane, so it's going to be DEF after that. So these are the 6 seats per row. And now I'm going to populate them with empty, because when the form first loads, they all are blank or empty or unassigned, and unassigned seats will have the period. So to assign the empty seats, I'm going to use a nested loop. So first I'm going to loop through the rows, which is 1 through 15, and the inner loop will be through the columns or through the seeds, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, in other words from 1 to 6. And here I will simply assign the period to the seed. So our seeds array with the indexes of I and j will have the period. So this will add a period to our array, but it doesn't add it to our list row yet. I'm going to actually add the whole row at once. So after the inner loop, so within our outer loop, I will simply add the 6 dots for one row. So as we are looping through I, which is 1 through 15, I will simply add 15 rows. So we have A, B, C, and D, E, F seeds. So I'll just simulate the same way with a space and 1, 2, 3 for A, B, C, then space and D, E, F, and another space. So this will populate our list box. If I run it, you can see that our list box is populated with the seeds, and all of them are empty when the form first loads. So next, I'm going to create a sub-procedure that will simply update the rows every time a new row is being assigned. And in order to update the row, we need to know which row we are updating, so I will pass that as an argument. So now we can update the row's information in the text boxes. So our txt row.text will equal the row, and of course we convert it to string because row is an integer. So now we can assign the values from our seeds array to our text boxes. So our text box a.text will equal the seeds with the index of row that we just passed, and this is the seed 1. A is the seed 1, and B would be obviously seed 2, so it's gonna be txtb.text equals seeds with the same row that is being passed as argument, but seed number 2. And of course we have also C, D, E, and F, and it will be seeds 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this will be my sub-procedure that updates the rows. Now I'm going to create another sub-procedure that will assign the seed. I'll just call it assign, and as an argument I need to pass the actual seed that I am assigning. So it's gonna be a seed as integer. Next I'm going to assign the seed in the current row. So I will create a variable, call it row, and it will equal the row that is being selected from the list box. So our lst rows dot selected index. So we selected the row. Now I can assign the seed, but only if the row selected is actually valid. In other words, if something was selected. So if our row is greater than 0, then we can proceed. Otherwise it means that nothing was selected. And now I can display the secondary form to get the value of the seed. However, I don't have that yet, so I'm going to go to my form for the meals, and I'm going to create those seeds first, so I can then pass them to my main form. So I'll just double click the meals form, and I'll create the seed, which is going to be a public variable because I want it accessed in both of my forms. So this is again a seed that has the value of R for the regular, L, V, or period for the unassigned. So I can go back to my previous code, and now I have access to the seed. I mean, it's not assigned yet. We will have to obviously code that later, but I have access to that variable. So now I can go to my form assign dot seed, and you can see it's available, and it will equal the seeds from the row index and the seed index that is being passed as the argument. The row is the one that is being selected by the clicking on the list box, and seed is the integer or an index of the seed that is being assigned. So now we have our seed, and now we can actually show the meals form. So we will call the show dialog on our frm assign dot show dialog, and you can see that it shows the form as a model dialog box. So this will display our second form, and now we have our seeds. When we come back from the form after we assign the meal, we can now go to our seeds variable, seeds array, again with the same indexes of the row and seed, and we'll assign the value from the meals. It's going to be the letter for the meal whether vegetarian or low calorie or empty. So frm assign that seed. So this will basically retrieve the new data from the form that was assigned from our second form back to our first form. Remember, this is after we return from the second form. Over here we are going to the second form, we open it, and then once we close it and assign the meal for the particular seed, we return back to this code and we will assign that meal to the seed as it was clicked in our meals form. So now I can update the row, and we will pass the row that we are updating as the argument. So now we updated the row for the text boxes. Now what we are updating, in case you're wondering, is actually this portion. Remember, they all empty at first. When we click the row number shows in our row text box, and then as we assign the meal, we want to assign that meal to these text boxes as well. But we also want to assign the same meal to the same seed in our row in the list box, and that's what we're going to do now. So we'll simply update the whole row in our list box by going to our list box of the rows, that item, and we are updating a certain row with certain index, which is the index of row, which is the row that we are updating. And remember, at the beginning we're going to follow the same format as we have it here, basically a space, then 3 seeds, then space, 3 seeds, and then another space. So we'll add the space first, then we'll concatenate the first seed, which is going to be from our seeds array with the index of row, and this is the first seed, so the column will be 1. The next one will be the seeds with the row in column 2, and of course next one seeds with the row in column 3. After that, imagine in the airplane is the aisle, so that's another space, and then we'll continue with the next 3 seeds, so 4, 5, and 6. And at the end there's another space. So this will actually update our list box. So we updated our text boxes for the particular row, and now we updated the list box as well. So now I can go to my form design and double click the list box for the rows, because that will basically select the row. We click on that particular row. So we have the selected index changed, and this sub procedure will be fairly simple. We'll create a row as an integer, and we'll assign it the index value that we selected from the list box. So our lst rows dot selected index. And now if anything was selected, so we'll check again if the row is greater than 0, then we will change the text box for that particular row and that seed. So we will simply do the update row and pass the row as the argument. So now if I go to my form design, all I have to do is now double click these text boxes. So let's start with A, and when we click on that, we will assign the seed A for this row that was selected. To do that, we will simply call this assign sub procedure, and we will pass the seed, in this case A, as the argument. Now A is the first seed, obviously it's an integer, so we will pass the number 1 as an argument. So we will call the assign with the argument of 1. And when we go to seed B, we will call the assign and pass B, which is seed number 2. And of course C will be passing number 3, and obviously the next 3 will be 4, 5, and 6. So I'm assigning all the 6 seeds as I'm clicking on the text boxes. Now one last thing that remains for this form is the display statistics. So I double click the button, and it will basically display kind of the summary in our list box. So the first, I'll create a variable for the meals that I'm going to display, which is going to be with the index number of 3, because there's a 0, 1, 2, and 3, which is for the empty seed, vegetarian, low calorie, or regular meal. The next one is how many vacant seeds there are, and I'll start with a 0. And I'm going to actually assign, I can see that it's underlined, I forgot, the meals will be integer as well, because we are just doing counting. We count how many of which meal have been assigned. And finally, that's going to be windows. We are supposed to display how many window seeds are taken. So now I'm going to do a nested loop once again. I'm going to loop through all the seeds available, so that's going to be 1 through 15 rows and 1 through 6 columns. And here I will simply check whether the seed has the R letter or L or V, or if it's vacant. So I'll use a select case, and I'm checking the seeds. So it's going to be the seeds with the index of I and J. And if the case is, let's say, first R, which is for regular meal, then we will add 1 to our regular meals. So our meals with the index of 1 will be plus equals 1. If the case is L, for low calorie meal, then our meals with the index of 2 will be plus equals 1. And if the case is V, for vegetarian, then our meals with the index of 3 will be plus equals 1. If neither of this is true, then it means that we have a vacant seed. So we can use vacant plus equals 1. And still within our else statement for our select case, we can now also calculate how many windows seeds are available. So we can use an if statement and see if the seed, which would be the index of J, because J is the seeds and I is the rows, so if the J equals 1 or J equals 6, those are the windows positions in the left or the right, then this is a windows seed. We can now add windows plus equals 1. In other words, if this is a windows seed, we'll count it in. And after our nested loop, we can display the results. So first, let's clear the list box. And now let's display the seeds filled. And we will concatenate the number of filled seeds, which basically is the 15 rows multiplied by 6 columns and minus all the vacant seeds. The next, how many, let's say, windows seeds are available, and we'll just add the window variable to it that we just calculated in the select case statement. The next one, how many regular meals they were taken, and we'll concatenate the meals. And the regular meals, if you remember from the case statement, is the index of 1 for the meals array, so we'll concatenate that. The next will be the low calorie meals, which is the meals index of 2, and then the vegetarian meals, which is the index of 3 of the meals array. And this should be all for our main form. Now let's go to our meals form, and you can see that we just have 4 radio buttons. So every time we click one, that's the seed or meal that is going to be assigned to the seed, whether unoccupied or actual meal. So first I'll double click the form itself though, because as the form loads, I have to check again what seed is going to be assigned. So I'll select case again, and I'm checking the seed itself, that we have the variable in the form level. Now, just like before, if the case is R for the regular, then we will have our radio button for the regular meal checked. Because remember, we are coming from the first form, and the seed may be already assigned, and we want to maybe change the meal or unassign the seed. So we want to kind of pre-fill the radio buttons with the actual value from the seed that is being passed. If the case is low calorie or L, then obviously our radio button for that one will be clicked or checked. And if it's vegetarian, then that one will be checked. Else means that it's a unassigned seed, so we will have the unoccupied radio button check. And now let's go to our form for the meals and just double click the unoccupied button or a radio button. And what we are doing here, we're assigning the value of period to it, to our seed. So our seed will now equal the period because we have the unassigned seed. And once we click that, we want to return back to our first form. So I will close this form, and I'll do the same for the other 3 buttons. So when I click regular, my seed is going to be capital R, and we will return or close this form. And low calorie will be the same way. So seed will be L and return. And finally vegetarian. So seed will be V, and we will close the form and return to the main form. And that's all the code that is needed for this meals form. In fact, this is all the code we need at all. So let's try it. And it's not working on the click, and I think I know why. Let me just close that. if I go to my main form code, yes, I have the sub-procedure for the text change. I'm not changing the text, I'm clicking the text box. So all I have to do is change this part, the text changed, to click. So when I click the text box, not when I'm changing the text, and I'll do it all on all 6 of them. So I change it to a click event over here. I also have to change it over here. It handles the txt_a.click, and I'll change it obviously on all 6 of them. Alright, so let's try it again. So let's select row number 3 again and click on seed number C, and you can see the second form appears, and I'm going to change it to regular meal. So now we have R over here and also R in our text box here. If I change it again, I can change it to, let's say, low calorie. So now I have L there in all both the places. So let's do another row number 7, and let's say seed number A. So that's a window. And let's do vegetarian. So now I have V there, and I'm going to also change E. And that's going to be regular, and F will be low calorie. So let's do another row, let's say 12, and E will be regular, and B will be low calorie. So now you can see that this is working correctly so far. So let's now display the statistics, and you can see that I have 6 seats filled. I have 28 windows available because only 2 are taken out of 30, and regular meals 2, 3 low calorie, and 1 vegetarian. Now if I change anything, let's say I add another seat to C over here in row 12, and I click statistics, now my statistics change. Now our seats are available, seats filled are 7 instead of 6, and windows is still 28 available, but I have meals 3 regular now and 3 low calories. So let's change E from regular to vegetarian, and I'll display statistics, and you can see regular now are 2 and vegetarian meals are 2 instead of 1 as it was before. And let me just do one more window seed. Let's say 14A, low calorie. If I display statistics, now you can see that 8 seats are filled, and windows available now are 27 instead of 28 because 3 of them are taken. So this is all working correctly. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in the next video.